For our next high-level task, we need to write networking code to make a request to the API, get the JSON data back, and populate our models. Of all the things we're going to do in this course, this is going to be the most straightforward, I think. And that's because in a previous course, we learned how to write some basic networking code. Let's recap some of that so we can lay out a plan for this project. We had a couple different classes in our networking stack, the first of which had a task of retrieving some JSON given a request. If we got the JSON back, then we work with it. Otherwise, we deliver an error to the call site. We need the exact same behavior in this project, so we're going to copy-paste that code in. Create a new file. So let's go ahead and create a new group here. So new group. We'll call this networking. And in here, we'll add a new file, Swift file. We'll call this file JSON downloader. And in here, we're going to copy-paste the code that we get from that code snippet. You'll find that code snippet in the teacher's notes section under the same name. So here, we initialize this class with a session configuration object, use the configuration to set up our URL session, and then carry out a JSON task with a request. The JSON task method creates a data task, as you can see right here, with a session object and takes a completion handler where we define what we want to do with the resulting data, response, and error objects. The logic inside is fairly simple. After inspecting the response, we attempt to convert the data to a valid JSON response. Otherwise, we handle the error. Since this is an asynchronous task that occurs on the background thread, we can't simply return either the JSON data or error out of this method. And so we define a completion handler for our own method as well, allowing us to defer the specifics of how we handle the JSON or error at the call site. If this is your first pass at this object, if this is the first time you're seeing this code and all of what I said was confusing, you probably need to take the prerequisites listed for this course. Now, even if you have and you would like a refresher, the link to the relevant video is in the teacher's notes as well. Now, of course, you might have noticed the errors that popped up when you pasted this code in, and that's because there's a type in here that we need to define, iTunes error. This is a simple error object that we'll use to define the various errors that can occur when using our networking stack. Rather than simply funneling all the errors through that could come up, we'll just define a few different cases. So we'll add a new file, again, to the networking group. This is also a Swift file, and we'll call this iTunes error. The code is simple. This is going to be an error enum named iTunes error that conforms to the error protocol. And to begin with, we'll add a few cases. So request failed, response unsuccessful, invalid data, and finally, JSON conversion failure. And now if we go back, we shouldn't have any errors in here. So I should be able to build successfully. Okay. Now, while we're here, before we actually start writing some code, let's go ahead and copy paste in some more code. Once we get this JSON data, we'll need to parse the data and use the correct keys to get the values we need. And we need to figure out what those keys are by looking up the API. This is all simple, repetitive code where you just have to type out the keys correctly to get the values from a JSON dictionary, so we're going to paste it right in. If you'd like to type it out, by all means, go ahead. So first, look for artist.swift in the code snippets. In the file, I've defined a convenience initializer for the type in an extension that allows us to create an instance of artist from JSON data. Note that since we don't expect the JSON response to contain album data, the album's property is assigned an initial empty array. So grab that code and then go back to the models group, to the artist.swift file, and we'll paste that right in. Next, go to the album.swift code snippet and grab the initializer for the album type and paste that into the album.swift file. There's nothing special going on in here, we just have more properties and more formatting to do. The final initializer is for the song type, so from the song.swift code snippet, copy-paste. Now, all of our models can be initialized with a JSON object. All right, let's take a small break, and in the next video, let's create an API client that uses both the JSON downloader and our endpoint type to get the real data.